Today we're going to take another look at the Ukraine war, but from a monetary perspective. I'm going to bring back Mr. Lu here again. He's a very brilliant geopolitical analyst, especially when it comes to monetary capital flow perspective, okay? And again, I want my audience to have an open mind because this is not something you will find on MSM and not even on independent media. I don't see it talk about that much. But I want to remind you that a lot of the core Chinese economic decision are built around this kind of mindset. And we Chinese are not stupid. If we did not know the tricks that United States play, we will not become what we are today, and will be something more similar to what is going on in, let's say, South America. Again, this is going to be controversial, so I ask my audience for patience and an open mind. Ukraine war and the 10 times that Fed increased its interest rate is the same plan. It is a coordinated, systematic operation. I do not blame Putin for the invasion of Ukraine, because no matter who's in charge in Russia, he or she will have to make the same decision. However, that being said, the US monetary leadership did not fully predict the initial outcome of the Ukraine war. What I'm trying to say here is the intentional provoked Ukraine war and the 10 interest rate hike by the Fed did not result in the capital outflow of the world's capital market into US capital market, not in the quantity US has wanted, which is why the US Treasury bond today is still inverted in April 2024, okay? US made two critical miscalculations. The first miscalculation, they did not expect Russia's economy to withstand the Western financial sanction onslaught. They expected Russia might win the war, but did not expect Russia's economy to stay intact. The second miscalculation, critical miscalculation, is China. Historically speaking, Chinese financial planners, its monetary policy is extremely obedient to the US policymakers. However, United States did not expect China and the renminbi to stage its first ever coup against the US dollar and US-led monetary system. In fact, within China, all the government officials, policymakers, and financial sector leaders, they all have been saying for years that renminbi is an extension of the USD, that renminbi cannot be an independent currency. We do not have the credential to run an independent currency. That's what they say. And for many decades, the Chinese economists and the officials have been applying that mindset while setting their monetary policy. However, the world is changing too fast. Many countries insist on using renminbi. In fact, there's barely that much renminbi in the world circulation today. The Chinese government decision makers have been against the issue of Chinese national bonds to avoid competition with the USD. An important indicator here is that during 2023, the offshore renminbi flow reached over 60 billion the first time. In reality, there's not really that much renminbi in world circulation. However, a huge amount of transactions starts to take place in renminbi. You want to know why the war in Ukraine started? The US financial capital operators, the leadership, understand very well the only currency that is capable of threatening US dollar today is euro. Renminbi, for example, is in reality just an extension of the USD. Renminbi, from many Chinese financial experts' point of view, is an organism, a parasite even, that lives off the USD. Back in 1995, when renminbi first attached itself to the US dollar, renminbi converted itself from a sovereign currency to a form of US dollar extension or converter. Why do you want US dollar? With US dollar, you can go to Saudi Arabia and buy oil. Or you can go to China and buy basically everything else you need for your country. That's why, from the perspective of American financial capital, they are more afraid of a strong euro, not a strong renminbi. Is euro that scary? Euro is extremely lethal when US dollar face structural problem. So the US decision maker knows that before US dollar run into problem, it must destroy the euro. Both Angela Merkel and Vladimir Putin knows this very well. The only thing that is missing in EU or Europe is an alliance between Germany and Russia. When the strength of EU economy merges with Russia's energy resources, natural resources, and nuclear arsenal, euro will be indestructible. Americans' decision makers know this very well. This is why this war must be fought in Europe. If this war was provoked elsewhere, for example, along the 38th parallel Korea Peninsula, then it will be natural opportunity for Germany and Russia to join force and consolidate the foundation of euro, which will lead to the acceleration of the decline of the US dollar. Will Ukraine war lead to the disintegration of EU or euro? Maybe, since you can see how utterly useless European politicians are. And I want to pause here to put my own opinion on this, okay? I disagree with Mr. Lu here saying that European politicians are useless. I will go even further to say that those are not really leaders. They are more resemble to some kind of colonial governors, okay? They are installed into European state leaders, not to lead, okay? Their job is to follow. Most of their loyalty not even belong in Europe. I would say their loyalty is elsewhere, somewhere in Washington or Warsaw, I don't know. But let's go ahead and take a look at what Mr. Lu has to say here. He made some calculation here, okay, to see if you guys agree. The decline of the US dollar is accelerating. The math behind this is as follows. When the US national debt is 10 times higher than the federal income, this means that roughly it will take United States 100 years to fully repay its interest and principal. At that moment, US dollar is pretty much worthless. So let's take a look at today, April 2024. I only got the detail of federal revenue income of 2022, and that was roughly 5 trillion. So I would say today is around that number as well, maybe a little bit more. And today's debt is at 34 trillion. That has become a very famous number. And there's also saying that, you know, every 100 days, there will be an additional 1 trillion of debt. To reach 50 trillion, which is 10 times of 5 trillion, it will take roughly, at the current pace, depending on how fast the debt is being snowballed, okay? It will take about 3 to 4 years, depends. And when US dollar reach that stage, which will take 100 years to repay the interest and the principal, theoretically speaking, US will be worthless. And when that level is reached, okay, to reach 150 year for payment and interest to payment pay in full, it'll be even quicker, because as we go down the road, more country will be jumping ship, and it will take US government even more effort to start printing more dollar in order to keep the book balance. So the debt will ramp up even faster. So the more we go down the road, the faster the debt will accumulate, okay? And this is roughly his idea. So about 4 years, US dollar will face some serious challenge, okay? There are countries such as Japan, in which the United States has a huge leverage over, which US can theoretically point a gun at Japan and say that, you know, don't you sell those US treasury bonds or assets. But to other places around the world, there are many countries that are already broke, and many countries that have trade surplus and savings, they will probably jump ship long before this happened. So it's going to be problematic for a US monetary planner to see what to do in the coming years. Okay, I want to draw my conclusion here. I do not agree on all the things Mr. Lu said. I agree on most, and I do not agree especially on the German-Russian alliance part. I mean, theoretically speaking, yes, that will make Europe, EU very strong and make Euro very strong. But there's just too much US influence within EU, and US is not going to let that happen. And I think that Mr. Lu is not that into European internal politics to notice that. So that's something I disagree with him. However, that being said, I know a lot of people watch this video just want to find out, okay, when the US dollar is going to collapse. Is it in 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, maybe not even that long. But the point I want to show here is actually, I want to ask my audience, how many of you guys actually understand the concept of Ukraine war actually rescue the US dollar? It's not even something that anyone can argue against me, for example. You can argue whether United States intentionally provoked the Ukraine war in order to achieve that monetary outcome to rescue the US dollar, but you cannot argue against the math behind it, okay? And this is something I agree with Mr. Lu a lot. I didn't even know Mr. Lu exists until about 8 months ago. And I want to tell you guys a backstory. One of my predictions, which match with this theory almost too perfectly, okay? At the beginning of the Ukraine war, so at the very first month, I went through the backstory and talked to my European friends, and I make the prediction, okay? I said that this war will either be a Russian victory, whether with or without the use of nuclear weapon, or there's a very slight chance that a nuclear exchange might happen, which at that point I don't think winning matters that much. However, there's a turning point, okay, which is during the Ukrainian Kharkiv counteroffensive, and that was, I believe, back in fall 2022. So before the counteroffensive, I don't think Russia is that serious about the war, and Putin is kind of just waiting for some kind of negotiation deal happening. But after the counteroffensive, I think Russia mobilized, and at that point, just like the Finnish president said, Putin went all in, and that's that. So at that point, I make the very interesting prediction, which happened to be right. I said that, okay, because the war took a turn here and Russia decided to play serious, my assessment is that US will not be able to achieve its monetary strategy goal out of this Ukraine war. Two reasons: Russia changed its strategy, and second reason, the head of Russian central bank, I don't want to pronounce her name wrong here, Labunina, a brilliant lady, okay? And he helped rescue the Russian economy from the Western sanction. So because of that, United States have to provoke a war somewhere else in a region that has trade surplus. And the option is very limited. You look at East Asia, so Japan, South Korea, China, those are places with high trade surplus. But it's also too risky because China has nuclear weapon, and it's probably not a good time to start a war with China at that moment. And then there's Southeast Asia. There's some trade surplus there that United States can try to do something there. They tried to do a regime change in Thailand, which it didn't happen. This guy got elected, but was later discredited basically by the military regime there. So that regime change didn't happen. So that left Middle East to be only viable option to start some kind of proxy war in order to encourage some kind of capital outflow towards the United States. And wow, bingo, it happened within the year, August 7th. So to conclude, what I'm trying to say here is it doesn't matter if you're pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian, whether you're Israel-leaning or Palestinian. There's a certain drive, motivation for US to see both of these wars continue as long as possible, because it actually benefit the position of the US dollar. And there are other people as well that argue United States actually intentionally start war like this. For example, Professor Jeffrey Sachs has been running around all kind of different YouTube channels and begging the Europeans to see this war a different way. And I think in one of his videos he even said that, please guys, just do not fall into the trap of the United States again, and try to save yourself, things like that. But it doesn't help. And at the end, I want to read you guys just one paragraph, okay, from this book again, Super Imperialism, written by Professor Michael Hudson. And there's a paragraph, okay, in the last chapter of the book, the epilogue. There's a paragraph I want you guys to listen to, okay? And this was written back in 2021, before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So here's what that paragraph said, written before the war, okay? Thanks to the Treasury bill standard, the world's central banks are effectively financing America's purchase of the manufacturers it no longer produces. But this poses the question of how long the de-industrializing United States can deter Europe, Latin America, Asia, and Africa from using their economic surplus for their own prosperity, and convince them to refrain from trading with or investing in America's designated adversaries. In 2020 and 2021, Europe simply rejected US pressure to cancel the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline from Russia and block trade and investment from China, making its own deal. So Michael Hudson at that time believed that Europe and many other parts of the world wake up to the trick United States have been playing around, and actually decided to work with each other to increase the prosperity of their own country. But I think even Michael Hudson did not believe the, shall I say, stupidity of Europeans to buy into this stupid war and actually play into the hands of United States, which even 26 months into this war today, many Europeans is still, they still do not see this, which is quite impressive, to be honest. And to that end, I will end my video. If you have any question, please ask in the comment section. I will see you in the next video.